Thursday, April 18th, 2018, Monaco 64, home of alternative economics and contrarian views. I'm going to look at the markets as usual. Then I want to talk about sound money and fiat money and the difference, compare and contrast both, and why we need to go back to a sound money system. And I'll also talk about why I do my videos and why I talk about the markets. Yeah, so let's start out, see where we are this morning. It's 8:15 a.m. Spot gold is pretty much where we were yesterday when I made my video. It's around $13.44, down about $3. The range has been $13.42 to $13.48. So we're still consolidating. I saw an article yesterday saying that gold has been above 1,300 for the longest in the last 5 years. So encouraging. I know it's frustrating, but as I said, I want to talk about why I do these videos and why I cover precious metals so much, sound money, fiat money. So silver outperformed gold a bit yesterday. We're at 1678, basically unchanged this morning. The range has been 1672 to 1684. The Dow down 22 at 24,766. S&P down 2 3/4 points. The future 2708, and the Nasdaq 100 futures up 11 at 6827. Just quickly to tell you, I'm not going to put the charts up. The technical picture for the Dow, we've broken through this trend line we had from the top earlier this year, but in my opinion, this is just looking more like a rising wedge formation, and I think we're close to a top, short-term top in the Dow here, or in the stock markets, and we're going to go back down. So that's the way it looks to me. What else? What about the currencies? Well, yesterday the dollar is quite weak early on, and then it rebounded this morning. Let's have a look. The pound is at 142.80, down about 10 pips, off the highs from yesterday. The euro is at 123.54, down 15 pips, or 0.1%. And the dollar is pretty much stuck where it was against the yen, 107.32. So we're still holding like in a range in the dollar index. We still haven't broken down below 89. So it's still within a range, as I said. Crude oil looks pretty strong. Usually don't cover crude oil, but it's at 67. Then WTI future this morning. What else? Yeah, I saw an article yesterday about how the CRB index looks to be ready to take off, like it's bottoming and could be going up. That's the other thing that's out there. So now back to fiat money, sound money, and why I do the videos. A lot of people might think that I cover the markets and gold and talk about gold because I'm encouraging people to buy gold to get rich or to make a quick buck. Well, I cover the markets because I worked in the markets for 20 years, and it is relevant to what I cover in the videos: economics, geopolitics, contrarian views. And a lot of you, of course, like the markets. A lot of you probably trade or have investments. So I'm just like giving my opinion and my feel for what the market's doing. Even though I haven't worked in the city for a few years, I follow the markets every day. I have a few investments and positions. I don't trade like a day trader. I think that's kind of a waste of time, to be honest, because you win some and you lose some. I think you have to treat it almost like owning a business. You put your money where you think in a company or a commodity that you think has good prospects, and you hold on to it. You might if things move quickly once in a while, you might take some profit and then go back in. And that's why I cover the markets, to give people an idea and a feel for the markets. Also, a lot of my viewers are from the US, even though I'm in London, and they like having the perspective of the pre-market of what's happening in Europe. Some people might not think, but what happens in London and Europe is quite significant. As probably some of you have heard before, when I worked as a broker, I used to have clients in the States, and they used to call in around 11:30, 12 o'clock here, which is around 7 a.m. New York, maybe a little later. And they wanted to have a rundown on what was happening in the markets here. Because don't forget, treasuries are traded in London and Europe. The euro-dollar future, which is the future that is the derivative of the LIBOR, London interbank offered rate, is traded in London. Foreign exchange, that's the biggest market, is in London. Futures are traded, the S&P, Dow. So there's a lot going on, and when the US comes in, they want to know what's going on to get a feel for what they might do during the US trading hours. So that's why I do it. And the reason why I talk about precious metals and gold, of course, is frustrating the last few years, the technicals and the suppression. But in the end of the day is that I try to encourage people not to get, if they can, of course, because it's very difficult. And that's the iniquity of the fiat money system. It makes it very hard for the common person to save any money, because they're earning in a currency that's depreciating quickly. They lumbered with taxation, regulation, rising cost of living, and they can't save. And whenever they can save, they'll put it in the bank, where they'll get no return, and that money in a few years' time will be worth less. So all I'm trying to do is try to help people, if they can, of course, and it's not everyone that can do it. If they have spare fiat money or spare earnings, to put it into some of it into silver, or maybe some into gold. I know gold is very expensive, or even if you have more and you can speculate, cryptocurrencies or mining stocks. And that's what I try to do. Am I trying to am I saying that I'm going to make you rich? You know, do this trade, make this. No, I'm just trying to help, because I know how hard it is. And why do I know how hard it is? You might say, oh, you worked in the city. Yes, that's true, but I lived in Brazil. I grew up there, and I was lucky because my family could support me. I went to school, had a comfortable life, but I could see around me all the misery in Brazil. And at the time, there was heavy inflation, but I was young. I didn't know, but I've learned as I grew up what inflation is about, and that's what you have in third world countries. And I'm not saying it's a totally bad place to live, Brazil or other third world countries, but it's like what the US and Europe is becoming, the very rich and the very poor and nothing in between. And I don't want the UK or anywhere else to become more like that. I think it's not a good thing for the future. Why would you want that? I do have children, a daughter, not children, but a daughter. I want the world to be better for her. So that's why I do the videos, because I'm trying to, because I think one of the things that happens with the fiat money system, and I would argue we've been having it since 1913 when the Fed was created. They couldn't really go off it right away. They've done it in steps in the US, but in other countries it's been fiat forever. One of the first thing that happens is that they don't encourage education, economic education. It would be very easy to teach even fifth graders or whatever to what money is all about. It's very easy. I even remember in Brazil, I went to the American school in Rio, and this was probably 8th or 9th grade, and we had some economics classes, and the teacher said, oh, interest rates are cost of money, and what is money? We don't really know what money is, you know. And I thought, wow, she went over that quickly. So, but it would be very easy to teach kids what money is all about. All you need is that little book I've looked at before, and I'm not going to look into it. What has government done with our money by Murray Rothbard? And it's very easy. It's just a basic commodity that facilitates indirect exchange. Why is that difficult? You can teach them with very easily, and so that's one of the first things. They don't educate the young people about it, because if people are educated about the monetary system, I think it was Henry Ford who said that. He said that if people knew how the system works, the next day there would be a revolution. So that's why there's the censoring on YouTube for alternative views. That's why Ron Paul, when he ran in 2008 and was doing really well, that's why he used to win primaries, I remember. And they used to have the results, and they used to put him in third, like on the TV screen. They say they have the first, second guy, and they say this guy finished third, Ron Paul finished first, but he put him in third place. So that's what happens. And to finish off, I'll read here from a book called Fiat Money, Inflation in France by Andrew Dixon White. And he talks about fiat money and what it leads to. So I'll read from the book here, and I'll make a few comments as I go along. Thus was the history of France logically developed in obedience to natural laws. Such has to a greater or less degree always been the result of irredeemable paper, created according to the irredeemable paper means fiat money, created to the whim or interest of legislative assemblies, rather than based upon standards of value permanent in their nature and agreed upon throughout the entire world. So unfortunately now we've got this fiat money or irredeemable paper, which is only given power through legislative assemblies or parliaments or Congress. But instead of being just in France in the 1790s, it's throughout the world now. Such, we may fairly expect, will always be the result of them until the fiat of the Almighty shall evolve laws in the universe radically different from those which at present obtain. And finally, as to the general development of the theory and practice which all this history records, my subject has been fiat money in France, how it came, what it brought, and how it ended. It came by seeking a remedy for a comparatively small evil in an evil infinitely more dangerous. So I guess nowadays we have fiat money because governments don't want to pay their debts. They want to devalue their debts. So that's the initial evil. And then what they do is that they suspend sound money or redeemable money, which is backed by real value like gold and silver and other commodities. And they basically issue more paper to pay old paper, which is even more evil. So, and it says, to cure a disease temporary in its character, a corrosive poison was administered, which ate out the vitals of French prosperity. I would even argue that nowadays, they're trying to, back in the 30s, fiat money, during World War I, it was something temporary, I guess, to cover all the debts that the governments had, but they've kept it. They've kept it. and then it goes on to say, it progressed according to a law in social physics, which we may call the law of accelerating issue and depreciation. Well, that's inflation. Because a lot of people nowadays, they don't understand that. They go to the shop or they go shop, you know, everything's going up in price. No, it's the currency, your currency, that's been depreciated. They're issuing too much of it. And he goes on to say, it was comparatively easy to refrain from the first issue. It was exceedingly difficult to refrain from the second. To refrain from the third and those following was practically impossible. So that's what happens, you see. That's why they can't get away from it. That's why all the rubbish we hear about, oh, they're going to do this, they're going to raise rates, they're going to, how can I say, normalize the balance sheet. Yeah, they can try to do it, but it's going to create havoc and they're going to go back to it, because once you go on this path, you can't get out of it. And to finish off, he says, it brought, as we have seen, commerce and manufactures, the mercantile interest, the agricultural interest to ruin. It brought on these the same destruction which would come to a Hollander opening the dikes of the sea to irrigate his garden in a dry summer. So you look at all the problems we have with the Western economies, and it's all to do with fiat money. We can't blame the Chinese or the Russians or the Japanese for, you know, the trade war thing is just like trying to fix the symptom is not the real cause. The real cause is the fiat money. And that's why I do these videos. And if we can help, so how can I say, help ourselves maintain any wealth that we've been able to save, good. But is it to make people rich? No, it's just to try to inform people of all ages, everywhere in the world, what kind of system we are under and why we need to change it. So if you enjoyed this video, please like, share it, subscribe to my channel if you haven't yet. Make sure you ring the bell to get notified, even if you have subscribed. And you can follow me on DTube, Steemit, and on Twitter. And I'll talk to you later. Take care.